Good morning. We're at Busylad this morning talking about turf health care, and some of the things we're demonstrating this morning, some of the things actually to talk about compaction and for taking care of the thatch layers in the soil and so forth. And a couple pieces of equipment we want to demonstrate here and talk to the crowd a little bit why we actually do some of these things. One is compaction problem. Once we get a line, it gets a lot of use on it from mowing and traffic and so forth. A lot of times we'll get soil so compacted that the root system has a difficult time going into the soil. Moisture and nutrients as well have a difficult time there. Plus we need to get oxygen down in the soil. So we're using some equipment and so forth to actually relieve some of those pressure of compaction, getting that oxygen, nutrients, and water back into the soil. This machine right here we call a core aerifier. And at the base of it you can see these tubes that run through the ground. They actually pull some little cores out of the soil, leave some holes, relieving the compaction and getting that nutrients and oxygen and water back down into the soil. One way we can test the compaction of the soil is simply by taking a real cheap, inexpensive little knife and pushing it down to the ground. If you can take a knife like that and put your thumb on top of it and push down with your thumb, if that blade will go into the ground, more than likely you don't have a compaction problem. But many times we get out there and we take both hands and that knife blade will go back and forth, and we just really can't get it in the ground. If you don't get it down an inch or so, that's probably telling you you've got so much compaction that you're really not getting good healthy root system of that lawn. Let's talk about another issue, and that one is called thatch. And this is a layer of decomposing dead grass and turf grass. We normally look at that area. If that thatch layer is more than an inch thick, we're kind of telling us that now our root system is growing all up in this thatchy area and not really getting down into the soil, into the nutrients where it needs to be. We use a tool called a dethatcher or a verticutter, and if you hold that up, you can see below here it has some blades that's running across, kind of like a saw blade. And this runs through the soil. It actually cuts through there and takes this thatch and kicks this thatch out by cutting into it and kicks this material out of it and relieve that compaction. So now you get the soil, the grass is now able to get some new turf, new generation of it, get good healthy growth back to the grass.
If you don't have a thatch problem, it's still good to run the verticutter and the pouring device just to help the water get into the soil better.
Very good question we had here. So what if you don't really have a thatch problem? Would it still be a good idea to run a verticutter? Certainly one thing we do by doing that is we cut those cuts out of there. You can see through here, by cutting these little pieces of grass, the stolons and rhizomes of this grass, it's kind of like taking a pair of clippers and cutting the ends off an azalea bush and you get new sprouts. Same thing is going on with this verticutting. When we cut those little stolons there, we'll get new sprouts, which rejuvenates that grass and gives a new juvenility to it, so you have a much healthier lawn. Good question, thank you.
How difficult is it for a woman to operate?
So you ask how difficult would this be for a woman to operate this piece of equipment? Basically this one right here is only two levers. Once you get it started up, which is the crank right here, you just pull on it, that will start it. You pull this lever here to drop the wheels down so the cutters will get down to the surface, and then you just grab the handle behind it and pull right there and you walk right behind it. You see, this is all of this thatchy layer that she's kicking out of there, actually causing that grass to be a nice, good, healthy. And you look back behind it, you now have an area that the turf is revitalized and ready to grow for the spring. We want to do both of these exercises usually when the turf is growing. So from now until probably 1st of August will be a good time to start doing these type practices. We're also going to demonstrate the core aerifier here to show you exactly how this little core aerifier pulls these cores of soil out of the ground to open up the compaction, relieve the compaction, and able to get nutrients and oxygen back down into the soil. You see these little tubes here, the first time it goes in the ground, it's going to fill that tube up with soil. The next time it goes in the ground, it's going to push that little core of soil out of the tube and fill back up again. So what you wind up with is these little cores of soil coming out each time that goes into the ground. That's relieving the compaction, giving you some spaces where the nutrients and water and oxygen can get back down into the root system. These are the small cores that the core air fire pulls out of the ground. You can see now you have about a 2.5 inch little thing. And you stick a knife back down those holes, you can see now that knife is going down in there all the way to the bottom of it. Good area spacings that the roots now will push towards those aerification holes, relieving the soil compaction, actually getting a new healthy root system going established down there. This will take only about just a couple weeks to fill these holes back in with the roots pushing against it. We've been talking a little bit about the cultivation practices you can do to your lawn care. There are actually five basic things that we look at in managing a good, healthy lawn. The first one is certainly nutrition, then followed by watering, the grooming, which is our mowing, and we talked about the cultivation, and then the fifth factor would be pest management. Let's take just a few minutes to talk about the nutrition side of it. As we do all these cultivation practices, you also want to think about the nutrition, look at some of the things that are going on there. One of them certainly important to you is the soil pH. We got a little pH meter right here that kind of indicates what the soil pH is. Now pH is so important to you not only for the health of the turf, but also it's valuable for helping the microbial activity in the soil, breaking down this thatch layer, and it also is important as far as getting the pH right, the nutrients you put on the ground, how much availability they will come to the turf. And we see right here, this soil in here is pretty good shape. It's right about, almost right at 6. Most of our warm-seeded turf grasses like a soil pH somewhere about 5.8 to 6.2. With the exception of centipede, we can go on down to about 5.5 to 6. So this soil, this Bermuda grass we're looking at today, the pH in this situation is pretty well perfect where we want it. Now, and on top of that, we also want to look at the fertility of it. And we look at this meter here, is actually a fertilizer analyzer. And you can see that follow this line right now with this little analyzer that we actually need a little bit of nutrients in there. What I would suggest anytime you're doing some cultivation or managing this lawn, if you have not had a soil sample taken in the last 2 or 3 years, go ahead and get a soil sample taken, get it to your soils lab, find out exactly what the nutrient levels as well as the pH is. That $6 you spend will be probably the best investment you have to your lawn for the whole year. That $6 will save you money and time, water, nutrition, health of the grass, and so forth. So get that soil sample done if you haven't had one in quite a while, and we'll do that. All these practices we're talking about, we usually start thinking about once the soil temperature starts getting around 60 degrees, things will really start happening. We start putting our fertilizer out, do our cultivation to it, and certainly we want to maintain the turf with good proper mowing habits.